Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz interview series with jazz trombonist, composer, and record producer Delfeayo Marsalis. He is one of the top trombonists in jazz today, and he remains very busy. He will be visiting Kansas City on May 6, 2016 at the Blue Room off 18 and Vine. He will be showing off a newly modified horn and giving fans his unique jazz sound. He was a collective recipient of the 2011 NEH Jazz Masters Award and comes from pure jazz royalty with the Marsalis family. He spoke openly with Neon Jazz about why he loves jazz and much more. Please dig this interview, my friends.
Hey.
How are you, sir?
Very good.
Hey, thank you for taking a minute out for me today. I appreciate it.
Oh, it's no problem.
So what I want to ask, first of all, is what brings you to Kansas City? How did all of this come about for you to play at the Blue Room this Friday?
Well, there's one of the great instrument creators, makers, and repairmen in the world living right here in Kansas City, Mr. Mike Corrigan. He has a series, it's called Pimp My Horn. We talked about it, and he's going to pimp out my horn. What he does is basically he gets different ideas and things that are unique to the individual, and then he puts the bling on the horn. So I'm looking forward to that. We're going to also have a show at the Blue Room on Friday night, and this will be the kind of the unveiling of my new horn with the bling on it.
So have you been to Kansas City before to play?
I have been. I've been here with Mr. Bobby Watson and Sean Jones on trumpet a couple of years back, and that would have been at the Blue Room also.
So what else is going on with you lately? How is activity? How are things going for you?
Well, everything's really good. You know, I released a CD with my dad entitled The Last Southern Gentleman back in 2014, and we've been touring with that. Recently had a tour with Mr. Cyrus Chestnut on piano and Reginald Veal on bass, or Marvin Smitty Smith. You know, I think it's really encouraging to hear these guys, and you know they're really keeping the flame alive, as we would say, in the sound of jazz. I know there's always concern about what's happening with folks in jazz.
Well, and you know, you come from jazz royalty, so to speak. It seems like jazz is on the upswing. It seems like it's a healthy organism and things are really going. Kansas City's an indicator of that. Things are going really good here. How do you feel?
Oh, for sure. And I mean, you know, the real jazz royalty. I mean, Charlie Parker, just that alone. You know, having come from KC is just tremendous. You know, we're just trying to keep the traditions and the ideas alive that we feel are important, especially coming out of New Orleans. And it's kind of the celebration sound. And, you know, we have lots of folks all around the world learning in the schools. So they're proficient at I guess you'd say, the technique of jazz. And what we're trying to really maintain is that joy of expression. And that's something that all the great masters, Charlie Parker and Thelonious Monk, or you know, John Coltrane, Miles Davis, doesn't matter, you know, the long list of folks, they really had the sound of joy and celebration, and that's what we like to embrace.
So speaking of that celebration of jazz, you began your journey on the trombone, and you know, you could have picked anything, but what is it about the love affair that you have with that instrument?
Well, I like to say the trombone kind of chose me, you know, and if you use the New Orleans Jazz Band as an example, we say that the job of the trumpet is always to play the lead. So, you know, Wynton's got that covered. That's a perfect match. And then the saxophone or the clarinet is either going to agree with the trumpet or he's going to argue or disagree. And Branford is perfectly suited for that instrument. So depending on what's happening with the trumpet and the clarinet or trumpet and the saxophone, in other words, if they're arguing, then the trombone comes along and plays something that's like, hey, man, everything is going to be cool. And if they're agreeing too much, then that's when the trombone's got to put that spice in there and break things up. You know, I think it fits also with being a producer. The trombone has to really hear all of what's going on and figure out how to maneuver through the maze. So I'd say I'm well suited to play trombone.
Sounds like the trombone is the head of the UN then.
Yeah, very well, because I'm sure whoever the head of the UN is probably played trombone.
Keeping the peace, man. That's good. Let me ask you a question. You know, you obviously have been in a family that's surrounded by such good music. But let me ask you, what albums when you were growing up from other artists kind of blew your doors down?
Well, on trombone, the first record was a J.J. Johnson album entitled Proof Positive, which was more of a modern, sounding record. So I think that was very influential on me. But, of course, Charlie Parker with strings. I mean, there's so many, that my dad had available. But we also grew up listening to Earth, Wind, and Fire, War and those kinds of bands from the 70s and the 80s. So I'd say it's a wide range. But if we were to talk about kind of the jazz recordings, Duke Ellington's Such Sweet Thunder, to name, of course, some of the Miles Davis recordings, Kind of Blue and Sorcerer. But, I just remember there was a lot of accessibility to the music. John Coltrane, Love Supreme. And I would say it's kind of strange, you're reading the liner notes on the albums and you see these names and Elvin Jones and Art Blakey, and then all of a sudden you're put in a situation where you're in a band with these fellas. And it really was a great experience.
So let me ask you this. You've had a long career in jazz. You love jazz, obviously, but tell me, why do you love jazz?
Well, again, it would be the expression of the joy, and, there's something about when you play, there's a feeling that you get. I would imagine when you watch the guys and they're playing sports at the highest level, then there is a feeling of satisfaction that comes, not only from playing the sport, but when you accomplish that. And when you're swinging, when the band is swinging and the audience is grooving, there's a feeling that you get. And that's what I try to especially working with the students, to say, really our goal is to get that particular feeling, because there's only one way to get it. And when you have it, man, it's something really special. And, so I would say it's the quest for that feeling of the groove, when everything lines up and it's grooving, it's swinging. And, we want to move the audience and let them know. So it's a combination of, working out the intellectual side of it and also the spiritual side and having a great time.
And you have been very successful at it with your family. So I want to ask you this. What did it feel like in 2011 to get the NEH Jazz Master honor? How did that feel?
Yeah, it was very humbling. And, most of the people who they're in their 60s or 70s when they're granted that award. So, it was very much an honor. And for myself, I really want to just uphold the legacy of the music and to try to bring it to more people and, just keep that spark alive so that people understand how vibrant the music can be, and it can be totally cool.
What's the nicest thing a fan has ever said to you?
I don't know if I can say it on radio. I had a person in Minnesota, and she said, how do I put that on the radio? But she said that, her husband loved to take her to my shows because it put her in a romantic mood.
Nice.
Let's say it that way. That's really the goal, is to, I always, tell the folks, we try to prepare them for the rest of the evening, but to try to just, get them to just relax and enjoy themselves, and to carry that feeling on with them through the evening and on through the week.
Right on. Let me ask you this. Everybody has their perception of who you are, your family, your friends, the folks that are in the crowd, but who do you think you are?
Well, Mr. Big Stuff? Well, I'm the person that I think I've a lot like my mother. And my mother would kind of come into your place and, start straightening things out and helping you to organize it. So I always feel that, I'd like to go into a situation and help to organize it and to kind of hook it up. So I think that was the main thing when I played with Elvin Jones for a number of years, is his understanding that, there's a way that you have to understand the music and also be able to kind of even things out. So I'd say for sure that's pretty much what my forte is.
Beautiful. Hey, thank you for taking a little time with me today, and enjoy your visit to Kansas City.
All right. Thank you, bro. I'll catch you later.
Take
All
care.
right, Joe.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to yet another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest players in New York, Kansas City, New Orleans, and spots all over the world, giving fans all that jazz. And thanks to Delfeayo for his music, that legacy of great jazz, and giving Kansas City his blend of it. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Domino on the iTunes Store, or visit theneonjazz.blogspot.com for all things Neon Jazz. Until next time, enjoy the music, my friends.
Neon Jazz.